The world we live in today is commercialized like never before in the history of mankind. Advertising is all around us, and children are not spared. Some of us believe advertising manipulates us, so it may not be surprising that some of us blame fast food advertising for child obesity. But is fast food advertising really to blame? In order to find out, we will look at this issue from 3 different point of views. It is important to first of all get the parents' perspective on the issue and see what they think of advertising to children.
Marketing these days is done very cleverly. They make it bright and attractive, so it does appeal to the kids, albeit the message might not appeal to them, but that's not the aim. The aim is the message to appeal to the parents, and the bright colours and that sort of thing to appeal to the kids. Marketing is made in such a way that it attracts them, and I think that then makes them want to put a bit of pressure on the parents because they want what they see because it looks good.
So to what extent do parents believe that fast food advertising contributes to child obesity?
It's a big contributor, I think. I think it goes hand in hand with the parents at the same time. I don't think the marketing is the only thing to blame or the advertising of fast foods. I think the decision lies with the parents, but I do think it plays a role because it puts pressure on the parents because the kids obviously, they continually want it. And these days, with life being so busy, I think parents do tend to give in a lot easier. Unfortunately, the days are gone where families used to sit around the table and not watch TV again because of our lifestyle. We tend to sit in front of the TV and eat. And those adverts are there all the time. So I think that's the biggest problem.
Some countries have introduced legal measures and banned advertising to children. The question that needs to be asked is whether this would cause more harm than good.
In terms of ethical, I'd love all advertising to be banned, but the world we live in, it's just never going to happen. So it's always going to be there. I think it's up to the parents. In terms of whether it's ethical or not, again, like I say, in my perfect world, there wouldn't be adverts, but that's never going to happen. And they're one of the biggest contributors to society. I personally think if you start bringing out the ethical card, society and your neighborhoods and towns and cities are going to lose a lot of money because these guys pump a lot of money back into our society.
So from a parent's perspective, how could this issue be addressed?
The only way to address it is to address the adults because the kids don't just look at the TV, they look at what their parents do. The subliminal messages that are sent, even though the kids might not realize it, it does appeal to them. And I think in conjunction with educating the kids and even the parents on healthy eating, rather than the takeaways and the fast foods, I think that would be the best, the best outcome. But educating the kids, I think we don't give the kids enough credit. They know a lot more than what I think we give them credit for. And I think if we have to educate them, I think they could probably educate us.
While children probably understand a lot more than we think, questions have been raised around whether marketing takes advantage of children's limited cognitive maturity. So what about their abilities to evaluate persuasive messages?
There's theory out there that says that children gain almost like deductive argument skills when they're about 11, 12ish. They can analyse an argument, think about pros and cons, and weigh up their options. Before then, they're very impressionable, or they go off more of a trial and error type basis. Children are vulnerable to an extent, depending on the type of advertising employed. But in saying that, if their caregivers, their parents, education providers create their abilities to analyse these type of advertisements and stuff, it can help.
So from a psychological point of view, there is some doubt around how vulnerable children may be to advertising. But when it comes to influencing children's food preferences, there is clear indication on how fast food advertising impacts on children's favourite foods.
You ask kids what their favourite food half the time is, and it is the fast food. It's a KFC, it's a McDonald's, a cheeseburger, a pizza, etc. You see all these like on some advertising you see all these kids having fun in such associated places, or they get these toys and they associate these other great things that's part of their life with this food. So it does very much influence their preferences for food.
But what role do parents play in this ethical dilemma? How influential are parents on their children?
Children are very impressionable. They take a lot of their world knowledge, especially at young ages, from what their parents say. They take a lot of truth. And it's actually the parents' job to filter and give perspective onto these advertisements. Parents need to be aware of what the problems advertising have in a child's life, that they need to monitor it and not just say, you know, if their son comes and goes, I want this, blah, blah, they don't just go, yes. They go, well, where'd you hear about this? Why do you want this, etc., etc.
Another influencer is the school environment. For that very reason, it is necessary to ask if schools should take a more active role on educating children on the downsides of fast food.
Schools shouldn't necessarily say how bad it is, but they should create the skills within the children to be able to decide for themselves. They should encourage the ability to analyse an argument or an advertisement and to weigh up pros and cons so that they can decide for themselves. Because teaching them that it's bad will completely negate them from it. No, it's not all bad. They should be able to analyse it. You can't say all advertising is bad.
In order to get the full picture, we now also need to go and ask the marketer and see what he has to say to advertising to children and how exactly it all works.
Advertising to children is a really interesting one actually, because children pick up a lot on things like visual cues and sound cues and that sort of thing, which like a television commercial or a radio commercial can have a lot of. It sort of really engages them and attracts their interest. However, they're not necessarily the ones that are actually making the buying decision in the household. The advertising that they do is targeted at a number of different levels. So one, it's trying to appeal to the decision maker being the parent, but it's also trying to hook in the child so that they do feel like they want to be part of that.
So what about the psychological impact that advertising has on children?
Advertising impacts and influences a child's decision. You know, the choice McDonald's chooses colours like red and yellow for a very good reason. Those are colours that are really closely associated with food, and then they package that around quite a fun and friendly experience that you have when you come in, whether it be at the counter or off into the games room and that sort of thing.
Both our parent and psychologists agree that fast food advertising is a contributor to child obesity, but that it's not the only factor. So what does a marketer think?
Advertising has a contribution, but I don't think it's the primary contribution. Ultimately, it's up to the parents to say whether or not they're going to buy it. I think some parents would be better at that than other parents, and that would come down to probably the level of education and how they've been brought up and how they are raising their family. All advertising looks to influence whoever the target audience is opinion towards their product. So the advertising is targeted for certain bits of McDonald's advertising, as an example. One organisation is targeted at children, and that is very much to encourage mum and dad to stop the car and to go in. What happens once they're in there and what gets chosen at the counter is very much up to the parent.
So what to do about this social dilemma? How should child obesity be approached? Should advertising to children be banned altogether?
The marketing industry can self-regulate itself around taking a responsible and ethical approach to how it markets to children, and I know that there's a number of organisations that have that view as well. So I don't think we need to go to the extreme of having it regulated by government, but I think that agencies should be thinking quite carefully about any advertisements they do for their clients around fast food, And I think, working in partnership with them around what other things could be done in combination, things like more healthy programs in schools, education at different places, around the importance of eating some of those products that aren't as healthy for you in less frequency and less quantity, and combining it with things like exercise and that sort of thing.
Obesity is a complex and delicate topic, and there is no easy fix to it. However, we have it in our hands. Parents need to ensure that their kids have a balanced diet. Getting rid of fast food advertising will not fight child obesity unless we as consumers want to fight it.